Justice Department is accusing New Jersey Representative LaMonica McIver of assaulting and interfering with law enforcement during that clash with federal agents at that ICE facility. The acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, made the announcement on X, saying McIver had declined opportunities from her office to resolve the situation. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem also weighed in online, saying the charges come after a full review of the video from the scuffle. McIver and 3 other Democratic members of Congress had gone to Delaney Hall, an ICE facility in Newark, to do an oversight visit. There was a scrum that broke out involving the representatives and federal agents that eventually culminated with the arrest of Newark's mayor, Ras Baraka. DHS says video shows McIver, she was the one in the red, shoving her way past one of the officers. But McIver says the federal agents were the ones who escalated things. She says the charges against me are purely political. They mischaracterize and distort my actions and are meant to criminalize and deter legislative oversight. Meantime, Habba says she's dropping the trespassing charge against Baraka for the, quote, sake of moving forward. She adds, in the spirit of public interest, I have invited the mayor to tour Delaney Hall. The government has nothing to hide at this facility, and I will personally accompany the mayor so he can see that firsthand. Baraka says, I am glad that the U.S. attorney has agreed that this case should be dismissed. I will continue to press the facility to ensure that it is compliant with city and Newark codes and regulations. I want to be clear. I stand with LaMonica, and I fully expect her to be vindicated.
You can't do this.
That guy said you pay for my bike.
What are you talking about?
$500. What?
What was that? I don't know. I don't care. Jerry, you're going to have to explain what the hell that was. I think it's Monica McIver. Is that it? Okay, she's trying to ride a bike and the bike's breaking. Okay, got it. All right. We're breaking down this morning because, well, we're only given so much information about the president's schedule. Here's the president's schedule from this morning, this glorious morning. It does happen to be Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. To go in and check there for a second. And this is all we get. That Donald Trump's going to be speaking to the House conference. He's speaking to the House conference right now, but our sources inside of the White House and the Republican House conference in Congress told us none of those remarks are on the record. No cameras are allowed in that meeting. So we weren't live early for this, yet President Trump held a press conference outside of the House conference, and so we'll be going to that in just a second. President Trump did answer questions from the press. Very big day on Capitol Hill as Democrat Congress women are dragged away in handcuffs by Alina Habba. Alina Habba also letting a Democrat off the hook, a mayor named Ras Baraka. What's going to happen next? Ooh, baby, we are going to lock in and hopefully get some major answers. I don't understand why it's so, why after what they did to every J6er, we can't just treat every Democrat the exact same way. Rules of the jungle, they do it to us, we do it to you. This doesn't have, this ain't a church, right? This is the U.S. federal government. We're in charge. We should extract pain. We're going to talk about it today. Trump is live on Capitol Hill. Alan Dershowitz will be live on our program, along with Congressman Ronnie Jackson and Congressman Tim Burchett, who will join the show right after meeting with President Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Donald Trump's going to be talking a lot about the big, beautiful bill. There is major financial questions about that bill. Who's going to be funding what? We're going to get into Medicaid disbursements. Seems incredibly boring, but it's a major holdup for members of Congress. Will Republicans even vote on this thing? Right now, it is dodgy at best. You should get your American financing in order, as President Trump gets his American financing in order. Debt doesn't just show up one day. It accumulates little bits over time. Make sure that you don't get swallowed whole and underwater with your debt. At American Financing, they help homeowners like you every single day use your home's equity to roll your high-interest debt into one simple, affordable payment. They're saving homeowners on average of $800 per month. No judgment, no pressure, just real solutions that put you back in charge. You want to sleep again. You want to breathe again. You want to get out from underneath that crushing stone of debt. It starts with one call. It only takes 10 minutes. Get started today. No upfront fees. It costs nothing, and you can be debt-free. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, americanfinancing.net/Benny. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, so much news to get to today. Again, let's put up the schedule. The best that we have is Donald Trump speaking with Republicans in the morning. That's what we get. We want to be live for these things, and it's our obligation to bring you this news live. But last time we tried to do this, they literally kicked the cameras out of the room. It was President Trump talking to the Republican conference for about 60 seconds, and they yanked the cameras. We were texting people in the House and the White House today, and they were like, these remarks will not be on camera. So Trump speaking live now. Now we have the shot of President Trump arriving on Capitol Hill. Always cool to see in the Beast. And then we have shots of President Trump kind of entering into the House conference meeting. Now, Trump's big, beautiful bill is going to do a lot of good things. We're going to cover all of that. It's also going to do some things that are plying away certain Republicans for certain reasons. For the life of me, I can't figure out why Republicans in these moments can't just stand. They're all standing on principle, right? But you just stand on the principle of getting something done? Why is it that we've only sent 5 bills to Donald Trump's desk? We have unified control of government. This is why people don't trust Republicans. This is why you can't keep the energy up. At the same time, Nancy Pelosi had sent more than double the number of bills to a human vegetable who had terminal cancer, Joe Biden, who wasn't even operational. Now, Donald Trump has gone to work on Joe Biden this morning. Again, these things are not on the schedule. President Trump walks into Congress and decided to stop and speak with reporters. We're going to play you those remarks in full. And it's about 7 minutes, but you're going to find some very big nuggets in here about what President Trump is planning on doing. The big one for us is, one, Donald Trump's going to whip the Republicans in line and get his big, beautiful bill across the finish line. This is going to cement Doge cuts. This is going to cement a major series of President Trump executive orders, but especially including the welfare state, as it is totally open for the looting of the parasitic class, right? Parasitism is what happens when you have a functional, thriving, prosperous society and people from the third world come here in order to live off the welfare of that society. That is currently what America is experiencing. We're not experiencing the cultural enrichment that comes from mass open criminal immigration, criminal migration. We're witnessing right now parasitism. So Donald Trump wants to shut that down and also shut down the border permanently. All of this is included in the bill. And so Donald Trump obviously muscling that over the finish line with the Republican conference today, and then also setting the groundwork for what he wishes to do to Joe Biden. You'll hear it all. President Trump entering the United States Capitol moments ago and speaking to the press, and here's what he said.
Well, it's not a question of holdouts. We have a tremendously unified party. I don't think we've ever had a party like this. There are some people that want a couple of things that maybe I don't like or that they're not going to get. But I think we're going to have tremendous, not luck, we have tremendous talent. This man has done an incredible job as Speaker. You know, we had a majority of 1. We were 1 heart attack away from losing the House, okay? Now we have 7. That's a big, because we won some elections, as you probably noticed, and we're going to win a lot of elections. We have an economy that's roaring. We took out $5.1 billion. If you take a look, $5.1 trillion with a T, not a B. $5.1 trillion out of the Middle East. They're investing more than that. It's going to be ultimately more than that. With 180 wide-body Boeing aircraft. They're spending money at levels that nobody's ever seen. Usually a president goes for a trip and he loses money. In other words, he gives money. We went for a trip and we took out $5.1 trillion. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. And that's just the beginning. So I think we're a very unified party. The Senate's doing great. John Thune is doing fantastically. He's a great guy. And we're going to have a bill, the one big, beautiful bill. I think it's going to be, it's the biggest bill ever passed, and we got to get it done. Tremendous tax cuts for people, tremendous incentives, tremendous regulation cuts, all these regulations that are so horrible. And now you find out what happened, because Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but I believe we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that can want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa, they came in from Asia, they came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo in Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country. Who would sign this? Nobody would sign it. No sane person would sign it. You know who signed it? Radical left lunatics that were running our country, and the auto-pen signed it. And they didn't want him, and they were disappointed in getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait a minute, this is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the auto-pen. And they used the auto-pen and everything. He didn't approve this stuff because when Joe Biden was with it, he would never have approved it. You take a look. He would have never approved open borders. Go ahead, another one.
Are Republicans still grandstanding in your view?
Oh, yeah, sure. You have a couple that will grandstand, but I think even the grandstanders should. Look, the alternative is a 68% tax increase. And you can blame the Democrats for that and one or two grandstanders. We only have one or two, but we have tremendous support. But you'll have a 68% tax increase, or you'll get a massive tax decrease. You'll get a tax cut, the likes of which we've never had before. This is bigger than any Ronald Reagan tax cut. It's even bigger than the tax cut that I gave, because as you know, that's being extended and increased. So this is the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, or you'll get a 68% tax increase. And if that happens, I mean, what Republican could vote for that to happen? Because there wouldn't be a Republican much longer. They would be knocked out so fast. But we're going up to details. This is I'm a cheerleader for this party, and I'm a cheerleader for the country. Much more importantly for the country. But I'm a cheerleader for the party, and we're going to go up, and I think we're going to have a very good discussion. There are one or two points that some people feel strongly about, but maybe not so strong.
On one of those points, do you consider some of the proposals on the table, like copay and provider tax, as a benefit cut? How are you viewing those?
No, we are looking at one thing. We're not doing any cutting of anything meaningful. The only thing we're cutting is waste, fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. There's incompetent things put in. We have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid. I don't think anybody minds if we cut that. The Democrats, on the other hand, are going to destroy it because they're going to leave these people on. We're cutting three things: waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security. And if I wanted to do those things, I would have done it during my 4 years that we were there.
Mr. President, what's your message to your fellow New Yorker Republicans who are hung up on the SALT issue?
Well, SALT is a very interesting thing because the governors of New York and Illinois, you know, the big JB who's going nowhere. Probably right now he could be the worst governor in the country. But Illinois and Gavin Newsom, those are the people that want this. And they're Democrat states. They're all Democrat states. You know, Ronald Reagan tried very hard to get this passed, was unable to do it the way we have it, where basically everybody's treated equally. He tried it so hard, and he never got it done. He was always disappointed. He never got it done. We got it done. Now people want to change it. So we're going to be talking about that. But the biggest beneficiary, if we do that, are governors from New York, Illinois, and California. And those governors are the ones that blew it because they weren't able to get it. So I think we're going to be explaining that. These are all very blue states that I don't really believe. If we had honest elections, I don't actually believe. I think I would have won California. I would have won New York. I even think I would have won Illinois. I think we have to, you know, we're going to start this after. I was talking to Mike, and again, I'm his biggest fan. I love this guy. He's the only guy who could have walked in with a one. Think of it. You can't be a guy like me and have a one majority. You have to be a guy like him, a nice person. He's very religious. He prays. He's a man of God. And so am I, but he's really to a new level, I will tell you. He is a great guy. They love him in Louisiana, and they love him that's the only kind of guy. Somebody said, oh, well, we want somebody that, if you put a certain personality in there, you would have never, look at what he got passed, what he's gotten passed. And just so you understand, he's getting this passed too. And I don't think there's anybody I could give you guys that is so tough. You guys would run if you ever looked at him. If you ever saw some of these guys, you would not ask him questions you'd be afraid to. This guy did something that I don't think there's anybody that's more well-suited to be Speaker of the House, especially in a case like this. Remember, we had a majority of 1 for 6 months, and that was a very frightening thing because the Democrats have really hurt our country. And we are going to go into very much, so remember what I said, the auto pay. This government was illegally run for 4 years. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, should the DOJ be charging a member of Congress?
Weren't sure we...
All right, Donald Trump saying the bill is going to get passed and that our federal government was run by auto pen. More on that in just a second. Breaking news out of President Trump's speech to the Republican conference. This is obviously a speech meant to gird the loins, to kick them in the ribs, and to get Republicans in line. It is remarkable to me how impossible it is for Republicans to govern. Why is it so difficult for Republicans to just unite and decide that it's time to wield power? Why? And this will get into the Alina Habba stuff and the letting off of the, I don't understand, why do we let people off? Why do we give sweetheart deals? Why not throw the full and total book at the political enemies? Why not give them a taste of their own medicine? The number one way that you defeat a bully is to actually break their nose and make them taste blood. And metaphorically, right? We don't call for violence on this program. We don't celebrate people's injury. We don't celebrate people getting terminal cancer. But you do have to ask the question, at some point, someone has to suffer pain for them to learn. Every parent understands this. Every single fighter understands this. Every logical human being that just logics through something needs to know, you can't just keep getting away with it. If you keep getting away with it, you'll increase the bad behavior. And so I hope that President Trump is putting it to Republicans right now. Here's some funny breaking news. Okay, so from reporters inside of the room, or getting leaks from inside of the room, here's Olivia Beavers from the Wall Street Journal saying, don't F around with Medicaid. I'm not going to drop F-bombs on the show. We try and do a friendly show, but that's a quote directly from Donald Trump inside of the meetings. Trump telling Republicans to leave Medicaid alone. A political nuclear football there. This is what happens, of course, when you create new entitlements. You create things that you can't ever cut or destroy. Of course, Republicans need to cut entitlements and the waste, fraud, and abuse inside of these entitlements. But it becomes this nuclear weapon, and the ability for Democrats then to find one person who had their Medicaid cut, and then something bad happens to them, and then that becomes the new hero of the moment. The new Greta Thunberg, right? All right, what's inside of this bill? And this is, by the way, President Trump walking into that meeting. President Trump is in the meeting right now. My Republicans in the meeting. Some Republicans standoffish for sure on this bill. Enough to actually sink the bill? We'll see. Okay. So again, there is no live camera feed inside. This is why we weren't live earlier today. President Trump going right now, getting a warm welcome from the Republican conference. There wouldn't be a Republican majority conference without President Trump in the House or the Senate, obviously. You can see some members there, some familiar faces from our show. And here we go. What's in the bill? President Trump did speak one more time on Capitol Hill, talking a little bit more nuanced about what he wants to pass here. What's inside the bill? The one big, beautiful bill is a once-in-a-generation chance, says the White House. Here we go. It delivers permanent tax cuts and bigger paychecks, an extra $5,000 in Americans' pockets with double-digit percent decreases in their tax bills. American earning between $30,000 and $80,000 will pay around 15% less in taxes. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. There's a massive Trump campaign profits. It provides historic tax relief for Social Security recipients, slashes seniors, taxes on senior Social Security benefits. Social Security, another just obscenely broken program. What a complete fraudulent program Social Security is. They garnish all of our wages. Then they spend all that none of it goes to Social Security. It's a complete and total looting of the productive class to supplement the unproductive class, to create total fealty to the Democrat Party, and to scare the life out of seniors every 4 years in elections. Social Security is completely fraudulent. It should be privatized. They should destroy that entire program. It is, I mean, Social Security is the nexus of waste, fraud, and abuse. There's no money in Social Security. None. Every penny that goes in there gets immediately vaporized by USAID programs or whatever, putting transgender flags on every government building. Nothing should piss you off more than the way that Social Security is managed. But just on its face, taxing the money that was already stolen from boomers, right? So they're the ones receiving the majority of Social Security right now. So they paid in for their entire working life. It's been 50 years. And then you have the insult to tax that money. So you stole that money from them. If they had invested that money in the market in the 70s, it'd be worth millions upon millions. If you just put it directly into the S&P 500 or the Dow or the NASDAQ, if you just shoved it in there into just a money market, that money would have 10x or 20x. Now you're getting like pennies out of Social Security, and then you insult them by taxing the Social Security that you already stole from them with no return. Yeah, it's total garbage. And also, it makes no sense, right, when it comes to retirement ages and how long people are living these days. So Social Security is just a broken trash system. It needs to be done away with. I firmly believe it. Protects Medicaid for Americans by removing 1.4 million illegals. That's incredible how many illegals are on Medicaid. Obviously, it is. We live in a clown country if you don't have the ability to just give your services to Americans, to naturalized or native-born Americans. That's the only people that should ever receive a single penny in government services. If you don't have a system that insulates that, then you have a fake country. And we've been living in a fake country for a long time. 1.4 million illegals are on Medicaid? No. They deserve due process, and that due process means you find them, you confirm they're illegal, and you deport them. That's the due process that they deserve. They don't deserve goodies for the American taxpayer. This is the parasite class that we're talking about. It's the parasitic class, parasitism. They didn't build the country. They didn't sacrifice at all. They're not even immigrants, right? An immigrant or a settler is what your great-great-great-grandparents did, right, when they came here and settled the nation and then built something that is the envy of the world, where the entire world wants to move to. And then once that society is built and functional and prosperous, and then you move from your broken society to that society, that's parasitism. You move there to get welfare, that's what this is, parasitism. It makes President Trump's border security permanent, very good. It funds President Trump's border wall, boosts border patrol and ICE agents, who could be against that. And it modernizes air traffic control. Okay, great. It ends taxpayer-funded sex changes for minors. Okay. Is that really all that it does? Boy, this is the one big beautiful bill. Let's look at the news out of this. Republicans advanced One Big Beautiful Bill Act out of Budget Committee after setback. They finally got it out of the committee. Looks like Republicans will be voting on this until Kingdom Come. They're going to start votes, I think, tomorrow. It's going to get out of a Rules Committee tonight, and a 1 a.m. Rules Committee meeting. So now they're like punishing the members of Congress, and then they're just going to vote. They're just going to do vote-a-rama. They're just going to vote on it until they get it passed. Republicans managed to advance President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act out of the House Budget Committee during a late Sunday night meeting after leadership made concessions to fiscal hawks in the wake of a revolt. The bill cleared the committee, 17-16 vote, for President Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, South Carolina, Josh Benchy of Oklahoma, and Andrew Clyde of Georgia. 4 fiscal hawks previously shot down the bill from advancing through the committee last Friday. Now the bill is cleared. The Budget Committee heads to the Rules Committee, eventually to the House floor. House Speaker Mike Johnson is hoping for a full floor vote by the end of the week. We're voting on exactly what we presented the other day on Friday to the Budget Committee. All right. So we'll see. We'll see what happens today. President Trump has stopped one more time to speak to reporters earlier this morning concerning this bill. Obviously, look, we're just going to, politics is politics. You just don't ever get 100% of what you want. And there's some major questions that we have about the bill, major questions that we have about some law enforcement practices that are going on in New Jersey. We'll see. We'll see what happens next. But Donald Trump doing his very best to herd cats, as it were, with Republican members of Congress. Here we go.
We have a very, very united party. This man has done a fantastic job, and so have you, Lisa.
Thank you.
But this man has done a fantastic job. He's a real unifier. I don't think anybody else could have done it. We had, I just said to your cohorts downstairs, we had a majority of one for a period of 5 months. And he kept it together, and we actually passed things. And nobody else could have done it. He's done a fantastic job as Speaker. We have a very, very unified party. Remember, we had 1, and now we have 7. We won elections. We won elections. And we're going to win a lot of elections. The economy is good. I just had my highest poll numbers ever. And we had a big trip to the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. We brought it back to our country. 180 Boeing aircraft are being built now because of that trip, and many other things. That's the least of it. The economy is doing great. The stock market's higher now than when I came to office, and we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff money, and we've had no inflation. You know, they kept saying inflation. There's no inflation. Groceries are down. Gasoline is way down. Way down. Everything is down. All energy costs are down. I'll tell you, to me, maybe the most respected thing, you saw the way they respected me between Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE, probably the richest, certainly the richest of their type nation, great places, unbelievable amounts of money. They respect our country again. They were going to go to China. China was going to take over those countries 100%. They were dealing with China because they weren't treated right by the last administration. And they have tremendous economic power. They have more money than anybody. We probably have more money, but we have other things that they are very, very cash rich, to put it mildly. And they're spending 5.1 trillion. Probably it's going to be 7 trillion by the time we stop. And somebody said every other president goes and leaves and spends money, gives other countries money. I'm the only one that goes and takes money back. When you think of it, I said that's an interesting statement. I never thought of it that way. But we have this is really just a pep talk. We have a very unified House, and we have a very unified Senate. And Mike is doing a phenomenal job as Speaker. He's going to be there a long time. And we have a man in the Senate, our leader, Thune. Mr. Thune is doing a great job. I've gotten to like him a lot, and he's doing a fantastic job. Between the two guys, very different personalities, actually, in certain ways, but they are doing a fantastic job. I don't think the Republican Party has ever been so unified. It's become a much bigger party. We're winning the labor vote. We won the Teamsters. We won votes that look how well we did with the automakers. And by the way, the president of the automakers is now my biggest fan. He said, he did tariffs. Do you know how many auto plants are being built now in this country because of the tariffs? 3 just announced yesterday that they're building. There's a revolution going on, a positive one, in our country, and I love it, and we're doing really well. And we'll
talk about negotiations to stop, Mr. President. Do you want the negotiations to be over now?
Which negotiation?
Over this bill.
Oh yeah, well it's going to be. We're going to be putting it in soon, and I think we're going to have great support. We're going to make a couple of tweaks. I mean, we don't want to benefit Democrat governors, although I would do that if it made it better, but they don't know what they're doing.
So
we don't want to do any damage to a state. We want to help all the states, but we have governors that are from the Democrat Party. Let's say New York, Illinois, big ones, and let's say Gavin Newsom, who's done a horrible job in California. We want to benefit we want to benefit Republicans because they are the ones that are going to make America great again. The Democrats are destroying our country, and you see that with a past administration with an open borders policy that allowed 21 million people into our country, and many of those people are stone-cold murderers, killers, and trouble. Yeah.
What are you planning to tell the fiscal hawks who want to delay this? What are you planning to tell the fiscal hawks who want to delay this?
I'm a fiscal hawk.
They don't think this cuts enough spending.
I'm a bigger fiscal hawk. There's nobody like me as a
Thomas
fiscal hawk.
Massey said that has more deficit than Biden did, and this bill kind of...
Because we have to fix the country.
Do you think that Thomas Massey is correct in saying that this is adding Biden level?
No, I don't think Thomas Massey understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of questions, he never gives you an answer. He just says, I'm a no. He thinks he's going to get publicity. And you have that. You have that. They've got some too. Go ahead.
Mr. President, on Medicaid, do you want work requirements phased in next year? Do you think
Here's what I want on Medicaid. We're not touching anything. All I want is one thing. 3 words. We don't want any waste, fraud, or abuse. Very simple. Waste, fraud, abuse. Other than that, we're leaving it. Medicare, we're leaving it. All we're after, and this is for the good of it, is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. That's all we're doing. We're not touching it. The Democrats are going to destroy it. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, do you think you'll be able to convince Chip Roy and Ralph Norman to vote for this bill?
What's your message to them?
We're not getting Medicaid.
There are conservatives in this room who want to go further.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. That's all the cuts we do. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll see. President Trump still whipping the Republican caucus right now, whipping them right in the caucus. We'll have 2 members of that caucus joining us momentarily, and so we'll hear live how President Trump reacted to all of this. In fact, one of the members, Tim Burchett, I sent a photo. Tim Burchett is like front row, right next to Trump. So Tim Burchett will be, there he is right there. Tim Burchett will be on our program live as soon as this meeting has ended, along with Barack Obama and Donald Trump's physician, Ronnie Jackson. Both will be on the show live. Obviously, plenty to talk about when it comes to the health of the president. Before we get to that, I wanted to do a quick breaking news clip about how the bill is proceeding. We'll cover in more detail what's inside of this bill, and also what does it mean legally for Joe Biden to be non-compos matus? What does it mean legally for Joe Biden to have signed pardons without being in his right state of mind? Can he do that? Can his staff sign 8,000 commutations and pardons? Is that even possible? Again, we're going to talk about all that with Alan Dershowitz. First, where's the book? Where is the bill? Where does it stand now? This is why Donald Trump is, once again, here's a live shot, in front of Donald Trump sits Tim Burchett, and Donald Trump is putting the muscle into the GOP conference right now. Here's where the bill stands.
This morning, President Trump will head to Capitol Hill to attend a House Republican conference meeting and urge them to unite and to pass this one big, beautiful bill.
So Peter Doocy's at the White House with more. Peter.
And something you don't usually see behind us on the North Lawn, the Beast is getting ready to take President Trump to do something that he rarely does. He's going to go to Capitol Hill with the full presidential package, the whole motorcade, the small army of Secret Service, a dozen or so aides, and he is going to lean on Republican holdouts to get them to yeses on this big, beautiful bill.
If we don't get it, that means the Democrats will have stopped us, and that means people will get a 68% tax increase, the largest in history. And if we do get it, we're going to have the largest tax decrease in history. And all my life, I've watched politicians screaming, we will cut your taxes. This is the only group where they say we're going to raise your taxes and they think they're going to win. There's something wrong with them.
Blue state Republicans want higher caps on state and local tax or SALT deductions. Speaker Johnson is saying we are continuing to work on it. It is not a final resolution yet, but I think we're getting very close. The White House is warning, meantime, that failure to pass the big, beautiful bill will be seen as a betrayal by the voting public.
The America First policies in this bill are the reason why Republicans currently have the majority in Congress right now. And that's why it's essential that every Republican in the House and the Senate unites behind President Trump and passes this popular and essential legislative package.
President Trump seems to just want to get it over with today. He is going to leave ahead of a 9 a.m. closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill as the clock ticks towards this deadline that Republicans set for themselves to get the big, beautiful bill passed by Monday. That only gives them 6 more days. Back to you.
I don't know why it's so hard. I don't get it. When Democrats get into office, they do, like every single one of them. I mean, maybe you can attribute this to the hive mind, the collectivist hive mind of Democrats. How like low information and low IQ they are. Don't worry, we're gonna get to Monica McIver getting arrested by Alina Habba. We have our own thoughts on that too, by the way. But I don't get it. I don't understand. There's time to stand on principle, and then there's time to understand governance and governing and will to power and having the capacity to wield power. This is why I have that map up in the studio. This is primo location. Primo location in the studio. We want to put something up that sends a message. That's the message. That's the country we live in. That country voted for Republicans to govern and to wield power. Donald Trump has said it before, and I'll say it again. It's a vengeance vote. It's a revenge vote. We did not like being run by a cancerous, like somebody who had terminal cancer, and they lied to us about it. How insensitive, Benny. How could you say that? It's not me saying it. Zeke Emanuel saying it on MSNBC that he had cancer before he got into the White House, and they just covered it up and lied to the American people while Joe Biden was sitting there telling me that I had to lose my job, that he was going to steal bread from my children's mouth. Many Democrats saying they should separate parents, they should take the children of parents if you don't get their untested experimental therapeutic during COVID. We were being told that by a guy who had terminal cancer, that they were covering up. Yeah, no, I'm not going to let this go. And neither is President Trump. Very good remarks last night. President Trump on Biden's cancer last night. We heard J.D. Vance yesterday, and this was live on the show, sort of just ever so gently hit the glass jaw of this story, saying it's a little weird timing, right? Jake Tapper's book's out today, and now there's a bunch of different news blurbs that have been leaked about the book today. And do you just choose right now to announce this thing, that this kind of cancer at this stage that clearly can't get to this stage without 15 years or more of growth? We had an entire show yesterday with multiple doctors explaining how impossible this all is. But anyway, I love that Zeke Emanuel clip. Let's grab that if we would. I love that clip because Zeke Emanuel's brother's Rahm Emanuel. His other brother is Ari Emanuel, the Hollywood super producer. Rahm Emanuel ran the White House for Barack Obama, who had Joe Biden as his VP. Barack Obama, clearly no fan of Joe Biden, like dissing and dunking on Joe Biden every chance he gets. But the point is that this doctor is read in, as they say. His brothers are like running the DNC. So when this doctor says Joe Biden had cancer the entire time he was in the White House, when doctors come on our program to tell us that it's the treatment, the specific testosterone-ending treatment for prostate cancer that makes men feeble, imbalanced, weak, unable to stand on their own 2 feet, that they have falls, that they have brain fog, they have cognitive decline, that's just a natural side effect of the treatment of prostate cancer. It all locks into place. And then Joe Biden was on vacation 575 days during his residency at the White House. 575 days. You remember those secret vacations he'd take all weekend? He'd never spent the weekend at the White House. He never worked through the weekend. He would always go into these secret locations in Delaware. What was that? It was cancer treatment, obviously. Obviously, what was happening is they had an entire cancer treatment center there at the White House. How big was this cover-up? I know that we sound like a broken record here, but Congress needs to get off their ass and look into this. It's the biggest cover-up in the history of the United States presidency. That a terminally ill president, not saying we want that, not wishing that on anyone, we wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, but since it is what it is, we need to be adults and be able to talk about it. It's Biggest cover-up in the history of the country. This guy had the nuclear football. This guy was starting wars. And he was terminally ill, and they were hiding it from the American public. Dude, it's dark. And while J.D. Vance touched ever so slightly on this issue, Donald Trump went hard in the paint. Here we go.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago. Because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical tests, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. That's being proven to be a sad situation. And the auto pen is becoming a very big deal. The auto pen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed. And I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess when you're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example of our president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, this takes a long time. It could take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation. I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case. Maybe it was the same doctor, and somebody is not telling the facts. That's a big problem.
Somebody is not telling the truth, says Trump. Trump says, I got my PSA just last week. Of course you get cancer screenings. This is the most common type of cancer for a adult male, especially somebody who's 80 years old. 80%, over 80% of 80-year-old men in this country have cancer cells in their prostate. So of course you screen for this. You start screening for this at 40. They knew. Here's the big tell. And this is what made all the news yesterday. Democrat insider, DNC doctor, you could call him, Ari Emanuel. Again, Zeke Emanuel, my apologies. Ari Emanuel is his megastar Hollywood producer brother, who's one of the biggest Democrat donors and a bundler in Hollywood. Ari Emanuel, one of the people who was working behind the scenes to get celebrities like George Clooney to backstab Joe Biden and kick him out of office. Why? Because they knew this. They knew that the fraud they were wishing to perpetrate on the American public couldn't last any longer. Here was the plan. Let me set it out for you. Here's the plan. They knew Biden had terminal cancer. They were going to run him as a Trojan horse through the 2024 election, a hope to rig the election again, right? If you can get him close enough, you can get the margins close enough, you can pull a 2020, right? Cover up all the windows, little blips in the middle of the night. They still did it, right? But they couldn't get big enough margins in 2024. And with Joe Biden and his debate performance, which was really the whole mask off moment for the greater American public, this audience obviously pays closer attention than the public writ large. But that debate performance was the end. The goal was to drag Joe Biden with terminal cancer into a second term. And then when nature takes its course, again, God forbid, we're not wishing this on anyone. It's just the reality. All these doctors are saying it's terminal, it's done, it's in his bones, it's Mets to the bones. Then you install Kamala and you get your first BIPOC woman president. Don't ask him what a woman is, but it's Kamala. And that's how you usher in 100 years of communism in this country. That was the goal. These people are real sick. They're monsters. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a massive cover-up that's going on right now. Apparently, all of these cabinet meetings, it's coming out that they were scripted. And we have proof of that. So they would like edit the tape. They would like go through and everyone would read lines at the cabinet meeting. They were scripted out like a Hollywood movie. Maybe that's what Ari Emanuel was doing. Anyway, here's his brother, an oncologist, Zeke Emanuel, giving up the ghost and saying, we all knew that Joe Biden had cancer when he entered office. Biggest scandal in American history. Here we go.
You're an oncologist, obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
There's no disagreement about that. Well, this is bombshell. This is a bombshell revelation from Emanuel here. But he just says it glib. Off the dome. He's just like, yeah, totally. We installed a guy who had terminal cancer. When you go back and look at some of the tape, it becomes quite clear how they were treating Joe Biden. This is my favorite one. There's too much, and we can't spend the entire show on this. There's too much tape to go through. We did an entire 3-hour show yesterday on it, where you can clearly see that what's happening is they're covering up something atrocious in Joe. Now, once again, the cancer treatment that is very common for prostate cancer causes brain fog, mental shortness, inability to have stable bone function, inability to have any muscle growth as a man. In fact, you have muscle atrophy because that's where all the testosterone in your body naturally, the testosterone builds muscle, builds bone, creates frailty, falling, slipping, both mentally and physically. Isn't that what we had for 4 years? Isn't it obvious that they set up a cancer treatment center in Wilmington, Delaware, and in Rehoboth Beach? And that's why Joe Biden was sneaking off there every single weekend. Isn't it obvious that that's what was going on? As you saw Joe Biden have so much weakness just going up the stairs. That's why they brought in the short stairs. It's like everything clicks into place. But then this is the footage, man. This is the clip. Thanks for stopping on that. Thanks for stopping on that Jill Biden screeching moment. We used to just laugh at this, but now we realize that it's a total elder abuse. And guess what? Members of the Trump administration are coming out. Members of the Trump Department of Justice are coming out saying Jill Biden needs to be charged with elder abuse. This is after Joe Biden was incapable of answering questions made no sense during the debate. Watch how Jill Biden treats him. We'll get to this article in just a moment. Watch how Jill Biden treats him. And, you know, the wives always know. And this is Jill Biden protecting a terminally ill husband. Now, when you lock it all in, it makes perfect sense. Jill's treating him like he's in hospice. Here we go.
You did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes.
Yeah, bro, not a great look when your wife is having to go out and do that. Also, men, careful who you marry. Just a signpost on the road to misery. Don't marry wretched, wicked, left-wing babysitters of your kids, which is what Jill Biden is. She's the babysitter, and she's always been the babysitter, and she continues to be the babysitter. Maybe this is her curse, right? What Greek was cursed to roll the stone up the hill and to keep rolling it forever and ever and ever into eternity? That's Jill Biden. What's the name of that Greek? Is Sisyphus? Is that it? Yeah, Jill Biden is the modern day Sisyphus. She's the babysitter, and she's now the babysitter. Always the babysitter, forever the babysitter. This is Sisyphus. She's having to roll the stone up the hill. Jill Biden at this scripted meeting, the last cabinet meeting, in the humiliation that was, and the fakeness, the literal fake administration, illegitimate and fake presidency. Here's Jill Biden taking over for Joe. I don't think this has Joe Biden's clip in it. It's so sad. Joe just reading from a script. Now what's coming out is that they literally went through and scripted all of the exchanges here, and they would go back and they'd cut and splice together clips from the cabinet meetings. This is why they didn't allow press. This was the last one. See if you can spot it.
She talked about the fact that sometimes the White House, in her words, surprises you. And for somebody who has worked on women's health issues for her whole career, frankly, as a teacher, but also as the second lady and now as the first lady, she said one of the things that struck her the most was the inequities in medical research, funding for medical research for women. So this is an important priority of hers that she had the opportunity to at this cabinet meeting to spotlight. And as you...
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't need to hear the news report. I wanted to see the actual raw clip of this. It's so sad to see. And the Biden administration does rightly need to be horrified of this. James Comer made huge news last night saying that he's found the people who functioned as Joe Biden inside of the administration, saying that he found the users of the auto pen, those who were in charge of it, that they're going to be bringing them in for subpoenas and questioning. We'll see. Trump official says Jill Biden could be charged with elder abuse as more scathing details about Joe's health emerge. An official inside the Department of Justice, a friend of the show, the great Leo Terrell. Boy, let's book Leo, please. But Leo's freaking awesome. Leo Terrell, working there in the Civil Rights Department of the DOJ, says elder abuse, criminal charges. He works for the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, senior counsel to the Assistant Attorney General. He shared a post that featured a photo of Jill Biden sitting at the president's desk in Air Force One. She knew about President Biden's health problems. She wanted him to run for president. Very evil. It is. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of love. This is the opposite of love. It's parasitism. It's being a parasite. It's abuse. It's illegal. Terrell, former Fox News contributor, posted the message, personal social media account. He also reposted supportive messages he received in the wake of the controversial post on X. Elder abuse is a form of domestic violence, and Jill Biden has a lot of explaining to do about her part in covering it up, wrote one supporter. I would never wish Joe Biden physical harm, of course, and despite my personal political views, too bad his own family compromised his well-being. The president's wife took most of the criticism. Joe Biden posting a photo of his wife last night holding a cat. Again, a signpost, young men, on the pathway to eternal misery. Don't marry liberal cat ladies. Joe Biden has taken advantage of Joe and is in the process of doing just the single most humiliating thing, which is just like riding it to the very end to get as much fame and glory as she can. It's a total sickness. It's completely evil. His medical teams should have caught this years ago. Shame on Jill and all who turned their heads and ignored this. Well, they did catch it. Jill Biden was part of the cover-up. She's greedy, another Terrell follower wrote. She wanted the prestige. I'm sure somebody paid her well. You know, a slush fund. Somebody who would be able to call the shots. Third term. That's right. They're mentioning how Barack Obama openly opined about how he'd love to have a third term where there's a literal earpiece in the president's ear and he could just do whatever the hell he wanted. I'm all for a full-scale investigation into this. It's something that, of course, needs to happen because we can't have this happen again. If they are able to run this one op, they'll be able to run op after op after op. They'll be able to do this again. They'll figure out a new way to do it. They already tried to do it with Kamala. Fake presidency, fake installation. And unless you punch back, unless you bloody the nose, unless you make someone taste their own teeth a little bit, then you're just going to get it again. You're just going to get it again. Is Trump live? Okay. All right. Let's, okay, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is live after the meeting, after his meeting. We're gonna hop back just a second. Again, this isn't on the schedule. Trump looks like he's spitting fire right now. Klein's gonna get us to the right place. We're gonna start. President Trump is live right now. Here we go. Let's pop it up. Here we go. There we go.
Moving it up again.
Trump live. Trump live.
He said don't ask with Medicaid. Apparently, he did say in the room. There is some concern among some Republicans, including Senator Josh Hawley, that this could impact benefits and that could amount to a quote hidden tax on the.
Here's what I said.
I'm wondering if you're.
Here's what I said. What do you want to say? I said waste, fraud, and abuse for Medicaid. If you find waste or fraud or abuse, we want to strengthen Medicaid. We want to strengthen Medicare. Waste, fraud, and abuse. The Democrats will let illegals be on. They'll destroy it. It will be destroyed. They want to have illegal immigrants be on. And if you do that, because it wasn't designed for that. Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Can you guarantee that your voters who supported the election, particularly working class voters, will not lose health insurance under this bill?
Oh, they won't lose health insurance. Not only that, remember, I'm cutting drug prices by 85%. And right now, I'm saving it. I'm saving the whole thing because I did something that nobody was willing to do. Other countries pay a tiny fraction what we do. And I instituted favored nations. We're now going to pay the lowest in the world. We're going to be the equivalent of the lowest country in the world. People go to London, they go to Canada, they go to other countries, many other countries, because they want to buy their pharmaceutical products, their drugs, at a fraction of the cost. Now we're going to have the lowest cost anywhere in the world, and nobody else would do that but me. And that might be an election by itself, might be election winning. Now, when you add that in, when you put that into Medicaid and Medicare, we've just strengthened Medicare and Medicaid. And the Democrats won't do that. You know why? Because they're taken care of by the drug companies. And the ones that are taken care of are hard line. Some Republicans get money from drug companies, and that's okay, because they're okay with it. I talked about it. The drug companies take care of everybody. It's the biggest lobby, most powerful lobby in the world. There's no lobby like that. But the Republicans are okay with it. Not only okay with it, they love it. It was time. So we're going to cut drug prices from 75 to 85, in some cases even more than that. You know, I was telling the story that, and some of you were at that news conference. I gave a news conference where I was the first one in 18 years to cut drug costs for the year. And they were like a quarter of a point to half a point less. And I was very proud of that. Now I'm cutting them by 80, 85%, because I stopped the scam. This was a scam between the middlemen and the drug companies. This was a giant scam. And by the way, and other countries, because other countries fought for this. This was a giant scam, and we're not going to have it. So remember this. Go back and tell your people, if you'd like to, that the Republican Party is cutting the cost of drugs by as much as 85%. not 8%, not 5%, not 1%, 85%. And you're going to have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world because I'm doing favored nations. And it's all done. I signed it. And the Democrats will unsign it, and the drug prices are going to go. And I think on that issue alone, you can't lose an election.
Mr. DOJ is weaponizing it with the arrest of a congresswoman, Democratic congresswoman.
Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control.
Did you
know, those days are over.
Did
The
you
days
tell them
of
to do
woke.
that?
The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You campaigned on lowering the price of groceries. How do you justify cutting food assistance in this bill?
Let me just tell you, the cut is going to give everybody much more food because prices are coming way down. Groceries are down. Eggs. You told me about eggs. You asked me a question about eggs my first week. You said eggs. I said, I just got here. Tell me about eggs. And it was going through the roof. You know that eggs now are way down. Everybody's buying eggs. Groceries down. Energy's down. Gasoline is now they're buying gasoline now for $1.99. If you look back, you'll see $3.50, $4. This country, we're going to lose this country. Our country now is respected all over the world. All over the world we're respected. We were a laughing stock. The entire world we were a laughing stock. I went to the Middle East, and those rulers of those three countries are very powerful people, very big people, very rich people. They respect our country again. China was going to take them over. You know, China was going to they were going to get into if you look, Saudi Arabia, you take a little look what was happening with Qatar, UAE, great people, unbelievable leaders, but they were abandoned by this country. And they're not going to China anymore. They love us, we love them. We're going to take care of them, and they're going to take care of us. We came back with $5.1 trillion. Trillion. Every other president would have come back having spent $5.1 trillion as usual. And remember this, we were losing $5 billion a day under the past administration. I have to be a little careful the way I talk because there's a lot of anger about that administration. And by the way, the real question, who ran the auto pen? Okay, who ran the auto pen? Because the things that were signed illegally, in my opinion. I think we've just proved that. But our country is respected again. All over the world we're respected. We were laughed at 7 months ago. Then you had November 5th, and our country is respected again. Thank you.
Do you think Congressman Lawler and the other stalled Republicans will vote for this bill?
Man, it's always so impressive to see how on message Donald Trump is. It's amazing. Do you know the new psyop about this? And Donald Trump, again, talking about the auto pen every single step of the day. So this is the third time President Trump has stopped and gaggled with the press, allowed the press and the cameras to carry his comments forward. We're going to keep watching. Obviously, this was live. The last two, all of them are unscripted. The last two we caught quickly afterwards, but this was live. The new psyop here that's going to be pushed on you from CBS. I just got to touch on this because Donald Trump keeps going on and just absolutely hammering Joe Biden. Here's the new psyop just dropped. Get a load of this. It's too expensive to do a cancer test on the president. The reason they didn't do it, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that this is what they've come up with. This shows exactly how flat-footed we've caught them on this and how the blowback is not what they expected because the universe is not the same. There's no more thoughts and prayers. You're not going to be able to whitewash all of this based on the good old-fashioned cheer and sympathy of the American people. No, this country was completely effed over by these demons. And now they're desperate to come up with something that sticks. Here it is. CBS News this morning. It's expensive to do cancer testing, so that's why we didn't do it on Biden. It's too expensive. Okay? He's 82. The doctor stopped screening prostate cancer. After that, the cancers you pick up, they're very slow growing. The harms of the testing, something may not kill you, talking about risk versus benefit. It may not be worth the risk. It's expensive to do cancer testing. That's what they're running with. boy, this is complete and total panic. Tons of breaking news. Donald Trump also talking about Monica McIver. She's the representative who's just arrested by Alina Habba. We're going to get to all of that in times of breaking news. Make sure that you are on a Patriot Mobile device. Make sure that you are using the device that keeps us connected, is the backbone of our central operation here, because when we're on the road, like we will be at the White House this week, we'll be meeting with RFK. It's going to be awesome. We're going to bring you all of that live. We're going to be in the room with Trump. I can't promise you like an Oval Office interview, but hey, why not? Who knows? You never know what's going to happen. Last time we were at the White House, literally Bongino, Cash, Tulsi Gabbard, all like chilled with us just randomly. Okay? We brought you photos and selfies at that time. I didn't have my production crew with me, so it's just is what it is. But like, you just never know. So we're going to be there at the White House, big Maha event that we're going to go to, other things planned and scheduled. And so get ready, lock in. What are we going to take with us? Our Patriot Mobile device. They're available on all 3 major networks. Makes it super easy to switch, locked in and dependable service. Don't wait. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Promo code Benny. Get a free month of service when you sign up. Promo code Benny. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Lock in. And ladies and gentlemen, we're excited to be at the White House later this week. We're going to be bringing you the news live from there. Okay. So just really quickly, just wanted to touch on this before we get to Alan Dershowitz. Yes? Okay, fantastic. Yep, all right. Alina Habba has charged Democrat Representative LaMonica McIver. Can you just put up the footage of McIver next to me? This was sent to us by DHS. DHS, where we're working on doing a larger interview, because there's something that sort of struck us. Something we're going to talk with Dersh about, I think. We're going to talk with him about a lot of stuff. But something that struck us was Bongino and Cash saying, hey, there's nothing really to this. There's nothing really to this, this whole assassination of Donald Trump. There's no deeper root issue here. I was like, that's crazy, man. DHS gave us this footage. We'll see. I mean, maybe they're, listen, whatever. Here's how we go about this. It's called having intellectual consistency. You have the guts to ask the question, was there a larger conspiracy theory? Were there other shooters? Who was the Trump assassin communicating with? You have the guts to ask those questions. The government, the weight of the evidence is on the government. They present the evidence, and we're logical people here. Present the evidence, and we'll look through it, and it doesn't matter what it is, what our priors are. You see the evidence in front of you, and you move on, okay? And that just is what it is. Cash and Dan saying there's no greater conspiracy theory about the Trump assassinations. Well, I would beg to differ. I'm not FBI director, but based on all of our reporting and what we've seen the government in the filings, man, these assassins were communicating with very dark entities abroad. They were calling people before they shot their shots, hitting President Trump in the face with a bullet, communicating with foreign actors like Ukraine to get Stinger missiles to shoot down President Trump's plane, to get weapons of war that America paid for on the battlefields of Ukraine smuggled into this country, to get Afghanistan terrorists smuggled into this country to kill Trump. That's all in the documentation. So there just needs to be a lot more answers, right? And then, when those answers are there, we will bring them. When all that evidence is here, you know damn well the show will be live, and we'll be bringing all that to you. And you're adults, you can take it, and we can look at that evidence. But right now, there's just a select few that are hoarding the evidence, and we can't see it. And so we can ask questions, and that's our obligation, in fact, to ask questions. Luckily, DHS provided this evidence very quickly. Here's Monica. The representative's name is LaMonica McIver. She's a congresswoman from New Jersey. Here she is committing assault, clearly, on a federal officer, elbowing and pushing and shoving and biting, behaving like an absolute goon. Can't do this. J6 grannies were locked up with cancer, some of them terminal, for much longer, for doing far less, or nothing, actually, for doing literally nothing, for just trespassing. Yet Mayor Ross Baraka in New Jersey is being let off, his charges dismissed by Alina Habba. I want to have Alina Habba on the program. She reached out with this with this statement right here at the Habba Doc. I want to explain, I want to figure out why the mayor is getting let off, why the member of Congress is being charged. The member of Congress is being charged. That footage is clear as day. And so we're set and ready to go with the charges for MacIver. And you saw President Trump just comment on that, saying we have it clear as day. We have her dead to rights. Do we have that clip? Okay. Here's President Trump on Democrat member of Congress, LaMonica MacIver. This was from seconds ago. You watched it live, but it's it's something that we've a ball that we've moved forward. That footage went thermonuclear viral, 30,000 reposts, millions and millions of views. So here's President Trump talking about our footage that was given to us by DHS.
Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control.
Did you address
those days are over.
Did
The
you
days
tell her
of
to do
woke.
that?
The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
All right. Good. Thank God. And ladies and gentlemen, we have joining us live right now somebody who is no stranger to being a defense attorney. Some may say the most renowned defense attorney, criminal defense attorney, walking the earth today. A man who will no doubt be making lots of news about this issue and many more. Alan Dershowitz joins the program live now. Professor Dershowitz, thank you so much for being on the program. This is almost too much to talk about in this interview. I don't even know where to start, but let's just go right to the Democrat representative from New Jersey. Since DHS sent us this footage, this is body cam footage, do you think that this would reach the level of criminal charges for impeding of an officer?
If it weren't a congressperson, if it was an ordinary person, they would be charged, they would be prosecuted, probably would get a suspended sentence, not prison time, for pushing, shoving, and elbowing, but it has crossed the line from free speech and protest to physical contact with law enforcement. And those cases are generally prosecuted. And because you're a member of Congress, that doesn't give you special immunity or exemption from crimes. It gives you immunity from certain things if you do it as part of your role as a congressman or a senator, but not this kind of pushing and shoving.
So you're saying that there's no protections right now, because all I see in my timeline are Democrat members of Congress saying, how dare they do this to a member of Congress?
Oh, no. A member of Congress is subject to rules of law, except if they're doing it as part of their role of Congress or on their way to and from Congress. There are special provisions in the Constitution. This falls outside of that. So she can be prosecuted, will be prosecuted. Of course, she'll be prosecuted in New Jersey, and she might very well get a very sympathetic jury that will engage in civil disobedience, essentially, and acquit her. So I wouldn't bet on a conviction in this case, considering where the trial will have to take place.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see, but the outrage obviously has been cranked up to 9 over this. I don't believe that there is anyone who's above the law. That's what I heard so much for the last 4 years, Alan. All I heard that there's no one in the country above the law, and then everyone's screaming today, how dare they do this to a member of Congress? I guess I don't understand.
The Democrats have been screaming no one's above the law, and they themselves put themselves above the law. Prosecuting President Trump for a non-crime in New York placed Alvin Bragg above the law. What they did on the January 6th defendants was beyond the law. So, both sides claim no one's above the law when they, in fact, often put themselves above the law. So if we really want to eliminate lawfare and the weaponization of law, we have to do it equally to both sides, and it can't become a partisan issue.
Could not agree more. So many legal breaking issues here. Again, let's move quickly since you mentioned January 6th. There was a lot of news made yesterday about a settlement with Ashley Babbitt's family. Now, this is what looks like to me a murder because Ashley Babbitt was unarmed and she's a 5-foot-tall American Air Force veteran, and she was killed in cold blood, seemingly without warning, by a man named Michael Byrd, who has a very long rap sheet of leaving his firearm, using his firearm, inability to pass FBI background checks. His record is pretty atrocious, yet he was there that day, and Ashley Babbitt's family has finally received a $5 million settlement from the American government for a wrongful death. One, do you agree with that settlement? I'm not sure if you're read in on this case. And then could there be more potential criminal penalties for the officer that killed Ashley Babbitt?
Yes, there should be a settlement, and the family is entitled to compensation, and there can be criminal prosecution. Again, police officers and others are not above the law. They have to, as we know from so many cases where white police officers have been sent to prison for excessive force, alleged excessive force against black defendants that, caused Black Lives Matter and all that kind of thing. So we know that police officers are not above the law, and there has to be a complete and full investigation. One hopes the investigation is fair and balanced, and then whatever the facts turn out should be the basis for the decision as to whether there should be a criminal prosecution. We have to end the weaponization, the partisan weaponization of law. I made a speech in Mar-a-Lago that President Trump was at, and I made the argument that the Republicans shouldn't be taking revenge on Democrats by using lawfare against them. We should instead just have a fair application of the law to all. And we all thought we saw the president nodding in agreement when I made that speech. And we hope that we see Republicans doing better than the Democrats when it comes to lawfare.
So, Professor, this is something that the president has mentioned every single time he's been on camera this morning, which is 3 different times, nodding in agreement that the auto pen is an illegal way to run the presidency. Now, this is, of course, what everybody is talking about right now, Joe Biden and his terminal cancer diagnosis. And we hate to say it, we don't want that to be the case, but it just is what it is. And multiple doctors and professionals have come on and said, when you get stage 9 Mets to the bone, it's a tough one. It's a very tough diagnosis. And many doctors, including those close to Joe Biden, said he had this. He had this when he entered office because this takes 15 years really to metastasize to the bone and get to this stage. And that his doctors must have known, his family must have known, this was kept secret from the American public. I just wanted to get first your takeaway on that. What's your reaction to that news about Joe Biden? And then I'd love to jump into some of the greater constitutional questions about this.
I've known Joe Biden since 1980. I worked with him on the campaign for Ted Kennedy beat Jimmy Carter. He's a very, very nice man who's been through hell in his personal life, losing 2 children. But there's no doubt that this should have been diagnosed. I'm 86 years old, and I get PSA tests at least once a year, probably every 6 months, and a PSA test would have shown this. The idea that he didn't get a PSA test because he's too old and it's too expensive cost about $1.50. One of the cheapest tests. And the idea that he wasn't tested, this was either a cover-up or malpractice. There's no third alternative. There's no way that a person could be allowed to have a minor prostate problem develop into stage 4 Gleason 9 cancer over such a long period of time. So there's something that isn't right about this. And I feel so bad for Joe Biden himself. He should have been allowed to live out his days. He should never have run for the first time, I think. And I voted for him. I thought he was a good candidate. I like him. I wouldn't have voted for him a second time had he run. But he decided to run, and his family protected him and covered him. And ultimately, when he decided not to run, it was too late, and he handed the presidency over to the Republicans. If you're a Democrat, you don't like it. If you're a Republican, you applaud it. But if you're an American, you say to yourself, this is not a man who should be president at this point in time. And if he had gotten his way, he'd be president right now while the war was going on, the Gaza war was going on. We face nuclear potential in Iran. He's not the man who should be president now. Instead, we have the most energetic president in my lifetime. I've never seen a president more energetic in his first 4 months. And yet, Democrats, when the people were talking about, when they were talking about Biden, many Democrats were saying, oh, Trump's the same thing. He's losing it. He doesn't have energy. He's lazy. He's this, he's that. No, they were just lying. They were lying about Biden. They were lying about Trump. You know, you could make whatever decision you want about the candidate, but don't lie to the American public about their health. That's a terrible, terrible disservice.
It is. So, Professor, you're one of the foremost experts on the Constitution. I think I remember one of the last times you were on the show, you were wearing a Constitution tie. That's right. So what about the auto pen? You know, does Trump have any basis? What would be the basis to investigate the illegality of the actions of Joe Biden, so infirmed?
You know who invented the auto pen? It was Thomas Jefferson. And I recently bought a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to his grandson. And I bought the copy of the letter that Jefferson kept for himself, which was written with an auto pen. His auto pen was very simple. It was a pen attached by wires to two other pens, and what he would write would be written there as well. Now, of course, it's electronic. Every senator, every congressman uses it. There's no problem with the auto pen as long as it was expressly authorized by the president, as long as the president said, it's okay to have me sign this by auto pen. But the risk is, if you're using auto pens, that it could be signed in an unauthorized way. And if you can demonstrate any likelihood that there was an unauthorized signature using the auto pen, then I think you have to rescind whatever the signature was. And there is a good constitutional case, at least for an investigation as to whether the auto pen was improperly used in the last months of the Biden administration.
Yeah, 8,000 commutations is a lot. That's a lot for anyone. The sharpest person. I mean, you'd have to be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year to personally get 8,000 commutations up and out the door. You have to assume.
Commutation is a very important part of the Constitution. They basically say that justice has to be tempered with mercy. And the Bible actually says to judges, justice, justice. They don't say justice once, it says twice. And the interpretation has always been one rigid justice and the other justice with compassion. And the executive clemency provision of the Constitution was designed to give the executive the authority to use compassion and to forgive, commute, pardon people who got excessive sentences. And I'm very happy to have participated in getting some pardons and some commutations. And that was the just and right thing to do. I'm hoping Trump will do the same thing and continue to do it. He's now setting up a process for commutations and sentences, but it's a very important presidential act.
So, compassion. Final question on this. Compassion when it comes to the moral question, maybe not the constitutional question, but the moral question of Joe Biden and what should befall the family of Joe Biden. There are members from Trump's DOJ, Leo Terrell, who's made a lot of news saying, is this elder abuse? Does this rise to the level of elder abuse with the family and Jill Biden, and running a man who's with a terminal illness for the toughest job on earth? We all agree on that.
Yeah.
And does that rise to the level of elder abuse? You see Joe Biden getting sort of dragged out to the View just last week, and it's very tough and it's a humiliating and brutal showing. You would never want that for somebody you love, but it's still happening. What do you think about that?
Look, elder abuse itself is not a crime. It can be an aggravating factor in something that already is a crime. We know that people were aware of the Alzheimer's that President Reagan was beginning to develop toward the end of his term. We know that Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. We know that Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the last months of his life. But this is the most extreme case because this is the only time when somebody intended to run while diminished in this way. The others were finished terms. Nobody suggests that Reagan had anything wrong with him when he ran for the second time. But this was an attempt to get him to run. Clearly, he had no basis for running and no possibility of being able to serve out his full term. We now know for sure that he couldn't have filled out his term had he been president and had he been diagnosed with this very, very aggressive cancer. He probably would have had to resign. And so it's a good thing for the American public that he didn't run. It certainly was not a good thing for the Democrats that he made that decision so late, because he made it impossible for there to be a primary and debate. And who knows what the result would have been. It probably would have been the same. Trump was on a winning streak, and he was going to probably win the election no matter what. But it certainly didn't help the Democrats to have Biden, a diminished Biden, still remaining in office, and then handing it over to what turned out to be a very ineffective candidate, Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it didn't work out great. It was a very, very bad hand that they were dealt. And now we get a Trump Justice Department. Now we get a Trump administration. As you said, the single most energetic president in our lifetime that you've ever seen. And it really is remarkable what they've been able to get done.
Yeah.
There is a sticking point that a lot of people still have major questions about, and this is the Epstein files at the DOJ, at the FBI.
Don't get released. I want every single Epstein piece of evidence released. I hope that Epstein took videotapes of everybody who did anything improper, because I never did. I was falsely accused, and I was able to prove my innocence beyond any doubt, and ultimately get the woman to admit that she may have misidentified me and confused me with somebody else. So from my point of view, I want everything out there. But I know that there are people involved. I know who some of them are. And there have been cover-ups, and there have been attempts to protect people who did do bad things with Epstein. I was merely his lawyer, and he fired me when we made the deal that got him 18 months in prison. He thought I'd been a terrible lawyer, that it wasn't such a good deal. And so my relationship, my friendship with him terminated when I was his lawyer. Probably shouldn't have been his lawyer. I think it's a mistake probably to be a lawyer to somebody you've known before. Normally my clients are people who just call me out of the blue. Donald Trump, I was my lawyer. Bill Clinton was my client. I represented him as well. I gave consultation during his impeachment, and I would have represented Democrats, other Democrats that had been impeached. I'm a constitutional lawyer, and impeachment is really a preventive measure. It's designed to make sure that a president can't continue in office when he's disturbing the public interest. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is I've been working very hard on this issue of how you prevent bad things from happening, preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons, using deportation as a preventive mechanism to prevent illegal aliens from committing crimes. So we're moving much more toward prevention and away from just reaction to crime. And so, I've written this new book, my magnum opus, after this is my 57th book at age 86. I finally decided to write this very systematic book about this new trend that we're seeing, whether it be in preventing the spread of illnesses, illegal aliens, a war with Iran, climate, all these issues. I bring them all together to try to create a jurisprudence of prevention. And, we're living in a debate with that now, particularly on deportation, because deportation is largely a preventive measure. It's designed to make sure that these gang members don't become predators and kill innocent American citizens, that so many of them have already done.
Here's the Amazon link for the brand new book, The Preventative State, The Challenge of Preventing Serious Harms While Preserving Essential Liberties. So as you mentioned, you were able to preserve a plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 when you were his lawyer. Alex Acosta made a pretty stunning claim as to why that plea deal went forward and why he wasn't able to get a heavier prosecution against Jeffrey Epstein, saying, I was told that Epstein belonged to Intel and to leave it alone. And this is what Acosta said before a Senate committee looking to confirm him in the first Trump term. Can you expound on that? Could you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I would be shocked if that were true. Jeffrey Epstein was not a reliable person. I can't imagine that any intelligence service would be using him, but I've heard the claim. I heard the claim that the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agents, used him just the way they used Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Maxwell. And, you never know. One thing about intelligence services, they act in secret. So you never know. But I can't imagine any thoughtful intelligence service using a guy like Jeffrey Epstein, but it's certainly possible. If so, I didn't know anything about it. In fact, once when I was in Israel writing a book, he called me. He was in France, and he said, I've never been to Israel. I don't know anybody in Israel. Could I come visit you for a day? And he did. He flew his plane, and I took him on a walk in the Shuk, in the Arab area. We had lunch with some prominent Israelis, judges, etc. He asked me to put together a lunch. And then about 9 o'clock at night, he got on his plane as he left. As far as I know, that was the only time he was ever in Israel. But who knows? He could have fooled me too. He fooled me about a lot of things. And so I would investigate everything. And I like Alex Acosta. I think he's a very decent guy who got the raw end of the deal because he made the agreement about Jeffrey Epstein. But at the time that we made that agreement about Jeffrey Epstein, he was only charged with 2 crimes, one a 17-and-a-half-year-old and one a 22-year-old. And so, that deal, 18 months in prison for those 2 crimes, didn't seem like it was such a great deal. But Epstein thought it was a terrible deal. And then, of course, all this other stuff came out. I was already gone as his lawyer when all this other stuff came out. And then, of course, there's the issue, did he kill himself or didn't he? I've always had my doubts about that. He's about to go into court with his very good lawyers. He had different lawyers at this time who might very well have gotten him out on bail. The shocking thing is that Epstein never came back. He was living in Paris. He had a beautiful home in Paris. I was never to it, but I've seen pictures of it. And he could have stayed in Paris. He could have become a fugitive there because they don't have extradition laws that apply to sexual misconduct. But he foolishly came to the United States, was arrested, and then either killed himself or was killed. My own theory is that probably he killed himself, but he paid off guards to make sure that he had the ability to kill himself. They took his cellmate out of prison. They turned off all the cameras. So there was a lot of improper conduct going on around his death, one way or the other.
So yeah, that's right. The reason I'm asking is because the entire internet was pretty shocked when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said, no, he definitely killed himself in the prison cell. And you're saying that that you believe that this was possible. You have been a skeptic about the official Epstein story for a long time.
Have been. I'm not a skeptic about the fact that he didn't do it alone. He could not have simply killed himself alone. If he killed himself, it was with the assistance of some guards. And some guards have been disciplined for turning off their videos and for other actions that allowed him to kill himself. But it wouldn't surprise me if somebody managed to get into the prison and kill him, because I don't understand what his motive would have been. He could have killed himself at any time. And if he was going to be let out on bail, then why would he kill himself? So I've always had my doubts, my questions, but it's certainly plausible that he may have killed himself.
Last question on this, Professor. Pam Bondi made a ton of news, essentially echoing you and saying, hey, I have 10,000 tapes that are of a pornographic nature from Epstein, and that's what we're going through. And she made this statement about a week ago. And then this was followed up by Kash Patel saying the same thing. Do you believe this? Do you believe that there's that kind of demonstrable evidence that is currently within the possession of the federal government? Do you know anything about that? Well, you said you encourage them to release everything.
Yeah.
Do you firmly believe they will?
Yes, I will. I do that. And I do know there is evidence. I know that he said he tape recorded secretly within his house. And I'm hoping, my wife and I stayed in one of his bedrooms upstairs in his house before he was ever charged with any crime. And I'm hoping there are tape recordings of everything that took place in these bedrooms and everywhere else, because they would prove that I never did anything wrong. Look, let's be clear. I've never touched another woman other than my wife since the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. And all the accusations were false, and they were proved false. And the woman admitted that she may have confused me with somebody else. And heck of a confusion, and put my life through some terrible turmoil, and cost me $5 million in legal fees to defend myself. It cost me more to defend myself against these forced charges than all the money I made in 50 years of teaching at Harvard. That gives you some sense of how serious it is to be mischarged, to be falsely charged with a sexual offense. And, if you're charged, people think you're guilty. To this day, people don't know that the woman withdrew her charges and said she may have confused me with someone else. So people still think that maybe I did it And that's why I'm hoping every single videotape, every single piece of information is let out, because they'll all exculpate me.
Man, you made some news saying that you know people that might be on those tapes.
Oh, yeah.
And you made some news in this interview, Professor, saying that there are people who definitely don't want him to come out. Elon Musk's just saying that about Bill Gates just moments ago at a live conference, saying, there are people that don't want these tapes to come out. And we know them.
And there were people who were motivated possibly to kill Jeffrey Epstein. Whether they did or not, I don't know. But there were people who were very anxious to make sure that their names weren't mentioned. And I know of several whose names were not mentioned, but against whom there is very substantial evidence. And it doesn't include Bill Clinton. He didn't do anything wrong. Women accused Bill Clinton. They accused the man from Virgin Airlines. Those were all fake. And many of the women who came forward then admitted that they made up their story. So we have to understand that the Me Too movement did a lot of good by exposing real predators. But the Me Too movement also was abused by lawyers and by clients who went after the money and just made up stories and got money, collected money. I have a friend who was a lawyer, and a woman lawyer in California. She said she was writing checks for $100,000 every week on behalf of prominent Hollywood people who were falsely accused, and she was advising them, hey, easier to write a $100,000 check than to have to go in front of the media and defend yourself from a false charge. So the Me Too movement started as a cause, then it became a movement, then it became a business, then it became a racket. And right now it's largely a racket. So you have to be very careful when people are accused under the Me Too movement. Of course, investigate every claim by every woman, but do not believe women just because they're women any more than you believe men because they're men. That's just sexism, and it's just wrong to say, let's believe all women. Many women are telling the truth, some are not.
The modern Democrat Party can't define what a woman is, Professor. So it's that's a really tough standard to hold up.
Different purposes. Look, my own view on this is very complicated. I don't think men and women should, that a person who was a man should be allowed to compete against women in dangerous sports, in sports where they could be hurt by the strength of the man. I think that should be banned completely. But when it comes to sports where there's no possibility of people being hurt, for example, they showed a picture on television the other day of pool, people playing pool, billiards against each other. I don't see any difference between a man and a woman playing billiards. So I would allow anybody, transgender, anybody else, to compete in sports like that, but not in sports where there is a muscular advantage in one way of a person who has a genetic a makeup of a man.
All right. Well, certainly a disagreement between you and Donald Trump on that one, but that's a topic for another interview. We just want to thank the professor for being on the program and for being so forthcoming. We hope that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel listen to Professor Dershowitz and just release everything, right? There's been too much made of this, and the more you withhold, the more it leads to people asking questions and to things spiraling.
Ultimately, nothing should be withheld. Nothing about any assassinations, nothing about any sexual, nothing should be withheld. By the way, including the names of accusers. When people accuse others, the idea that their names are withheld is a clear violation of the constitutional right of confrontation. So I'm in favor of no secrets when it comes to the criminal justice system. And you're showing my book, please, Amazon.com. You can get it. It's a quick read. It's only a few hundred pages. And I think you'll learn a lot from it. So I would appreciate if you'd order it on Amazon.
The Preventative State, your 10th book, your 20th book?
76th book.
76th book. All right. 76th book.
It's the Heinz ketchup. 57 books. I'm hoping to get to 70, but I'm not.
Okay. 57.
Yeah.
Alan Dershowitz, here's his X profile. 500,000 followers here. And, well, the single most legendary criminal defense lawyer walking the earth today. Thank you for your insights, Professor Dershowitz.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, we're going to ask the questions. We're going to put the evidence out before this show and this program. You're adults, so you can take it. And so can the guests that come on the show. We're adults. We can take it, and we're going to put. I mean, I don't know if Dershowitz has ever been asked about Pam Bondi's comments, about what Cash has been saying, and about what Bongino has been saying about the Epstein, not only the 10,000 different pornographic videos that Epstein had, but also Epstein killing himself or not. Jeffrey Epstein's brother now coming out and saying that he disagrees with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Very interesting. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel saying that Epstein did kill himself. We haven't played that clip on the show. It's been all over. We'll definitely load it up and you can see for yourself. So Kash and Dan say, no, he killed himself in prison. And this has caused quite a bit of controversy online. We had to ask about it. It's very interesting what Dersh just said. Dershowitz says, listen, Epstein maybe paid someone to kill him in prison, paid off the guards, and then allowed somebody else to murder him. Now, we know that Jeffrey Epstein was kept in a cell with a cop strangler who looked like a monstrous bodybuilder, one of the most jacked people I've ever seen. The guy, yeah, look at this. This is the guy who was in Jeffrey Epstein's cell. Is this what happened? Did Epstein really want to die that badly? Here's just Epstein's cellmate. Just happenstance. Just happens to be this man who was in prison for a strangling murder. I'm sure a coincidence, right? Dershowitz. So it's very odd. Listen, man, Dan Bongino and Kash are not the enemy. Okay, I will defend that till kingdom come. Bongino and Kash Patel are not the enemy. So what are we to make of this? So Epstein paid off the guards and paid them to turn off the camera, to turn their backs, and then maybe paid this guy to kill him? Is this where we're at now? It requires a lot more questions. It requires a lot more asking. We will be doing the asking. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who is never, ever short on a dadgum, never short on a brutal truth on this program, and the great meme maker of Congress. Oh, yes. A man who has gone on CNN and caused them to pull the plug and kick him off more times than I can count. A man who's a bad penny to Democrats in the halls of Congress and to his trackers. The great Tim Burchett joins the program fresh out of a meeting with Trump. Live now. Congressman, I just want to announce to the chat, please, there's a Tim Burchett dadgum emoji. And oh yes, it's being used like crazy right now. It's a full, just have your staff pull up the YouTube chat. We do stream across a lot of different platforms, but the YouTube chat specifically allows us to do custom emojis. And we have a dadgum emoji. Can we please get a close-up and we can pop it on screen? Anyway, the chat's flooding with dadgums right now. So dadgum, welcome back.
Well, dadgum it ought to. Hey, I was about to throw a dadgum out on that picture of that alleged strangler. I thought, dadgum, did y'all superimpose some bald-headed dude on my physique? Except that tattoo on his left, that mine says "Death Before Disco," and then Leonard Skinner rules on this side. So it was kind of a.
I thought you had mules. Look at all these dogs.
I know. I need a permit for the guns I carry.
Hey, come on, big dog. Okay, tell me about the big dog, Donald Trump. You were at the front row of the meeting. We have the photo. You're in the front row of the meeting with Trump. How'd it go?
I'm in the back. I got there early and I sat in the back.
That's not you? Okay, all right.
No, that looks like me. That
sure does.
Except, no, you got a little chicken fat on that gum neck right there. That ain't me. Anyway, that's probably some chairman. I just lost every bill in his committee now. What's new?
All right.
Anyway, I got there early and I sat in the back and somebody said, "Burchett, you got here early. You're sitting in the back." I said, yeah. I said, "Are you all in the front row?" I said, us Baptists. I said, we think y'all were at the revival and y'all did a lot of sinning. You needed that forgiveness early on. So I'm sitting in the back, and I did. But I asked the very first question, which was cool. And I said, Congress needs to get off their butts, Mr. President, start passing your executive orders, which I put a press release out last week. I was going to start bringing those bills to a forefront, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It got people calling these chairmen saying, "Hey, why are these bills not up in your committee?" And Congress doesn't have the guts. That's the main reason. We don't want to rock the boat. My daughter, my wife, or my girlfriend works for this organization that gets funding from these things. We need to kind of slow walk this stuff. I get it, but America's tired of it. That's not what we voted for. We voted for Donald Trump's agenda. There's a reason Trump won with overwhelming numbers, and there's a reason Congress only has a 3-person majority. We're one flu season, or as the president said, you're one heart attack away from losing the majority. Well, a couple of heart attacks anyway. But no, the president was great. He talked about the SALT tax. He talked about Medicaid. He talked about the impact. He called out certain members of Congress, good and bad. And, the SALT thing is, it stands for state and local tax. So say New York wants to put another LGBTQ museum in and use their tax dollars to do it, and they raise their local taxes on people to pay for it. Well, this just allows them to take that off your taxes, which you think, well, that's great. Well, no, it's not great. People like Tennessee and Florida, we manage our money. We don't have a dadgum income tax. Tennessee has 0 debt, by the way, which is unbelievable. And that's why everybody's moving there for the low tax rate, but that we shouldn't have to supplant bad decisions by New York. And so what they'll do is they'll just keep doing this crazy left-wing stuff and making their people pay for it instead of, guess what, electing somebody who's not a crazy radical left-winger to your state or local government and quit sending the bill to the American taxpayer. Trump said, stay away from that. We don't want that, which I dug. I thought, thank you, Mr. President. We don't need to be involved in that. He said, we can handle it later. Well, then he said Medicaid. I got a little nervous. He said, don't touch Medicaid. It's a family show. I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he said it many times.
Yeah, he dropped the F-bomb, right? That's what everyone's reporting.
In his New York bravado,
okay.
as I like to say. But no, I don't want to put another dollar in the swear jar. That'll be the title of my country music song was, I got IOUs in my swear jar. Anyway, yeah, he said that per source. Yeah, Olivia's right. She's right. She's usually pretty right. Anyway, so he, but then he went on to say, but waste, abuse, and fraud, kick it out. And I thought, perfect. That's the messaging we need. Schumer has been out messaging, we're cutting off veterans, we're cutting off single moms, we're cutting off this is racist, all this stuff. And nobody calls him out on it because he's Schumer. Well, he's lying. He is lying to the American public. All the Republicans want to do is cut out waste, abuse, and fraud. There's no reason some illegal alien should be on we should be paying Medicaid. There's no reason an able-bodied man sitting on his ass on his lazy boy recliner watching The View during the day is not out working. And Trump understands that. And dadgummit, I do too. Tennessee doesn't like that garbage. I got a kid that helps me out. He is he's actually looking for another job because people are ugly to him. He's autistic, and yet he takes care of his nana. He goes to college. He goes down at Pellissippi State. He's making close to straight A's. He helps me. I'm selling my baseball card and comic book collection, so he's helping me with that on the eBay. And the kid works every day. He does that. He's got a regular job, and people talk ugly to him and they spit on him and called him names. And he still takes care of his nana and pays his own way to school, and that kid doesn't get a freaking dime, and he doesn't ask for it. He doesn't want anything. I'm trying to get him a better full-time job, actually. If anybody out there in East Tennessee is willing to pay a kid $15 an hour, that'll work his can off. Anyway, but we've got that going on, and then you got these lowlifes who won't hit a lick in a pie factory if you got a gun to their head. And Trump gets it. I get it. America gets it. We're sick and tired of that stuff. Let the Democrats do that, but we've got to message better, Benny. We do a terrible job of messaging. And would it be rude if I took an obligatory sip of my Dr. Pepper right now?
Not at all. Okay. It'd be rude not to. So we could talk about how pathetic and sad and cucked the Republican Party is and how they can't get on board, they can't wield power, and this is why This is why the Republican base doesn't trust Republicans.
Yeah, we're in a 3-person majority, and we don't get it. Trump won overwhelmingly. Congress did not win overwhelmingly. And why?
But if Nancy Pelosi had like a half a seat majority,
she'd cram it down our throats because they understand the carrot and the stick, and and everybody was afraid to cross her, or they'd be gutted. They would be primaried and they'd be gone, and they understood that. We don't have to do that, but we got to start electing people with some guts and fortitude, and that's the key.
Will the bill pass? Will this pass?
I think it will in some form. What it'll do in the Senate, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I suspect it'll pass the House. They're going to do a 1 o'clock tonight meeting, which is a bad idea. But if they do it at 1 o'clock, then they can bring it up on 1 o'clock tonight at 1 a.m. And then they can bring it up on Wednesday by the rules. I just said, bring it up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and then make us stay till Friday. I get sick and tired of this. Somebody in leadership's got to go back to their district and judge a pelican contest or something. I don't know. But dadgummit, this is ridiculous. We came here to work. You pay us a stupid amount of money. I make 100. What do I make? 170 something. 170 something. I don't know. I mean, I've come from a family of dadgum public educators, man, and this is serious money they pay us. We ought to make us work, and we ought to stay and fix this thing and do it right. But I'm not in charge.
Tim Burchett, proving wise, one of the most popular members of Congress, especially with the base and the people.
But not among the congressmen. I'm not popular in leadership. After I asked my question today about us getting off our ass, I'm pretty sure my 435 ranking is not. I'm not worried about moving up to 434 now.
Here's the bill that Tim Burchett is putting forward. And let's talk about this really quickly. Why shouldn't a Republican majority Congress and Senate be able to codify the president's executive orders? No, Klein, this is Burchett's bill, please. Yep, right here. Legislation to codify President Trump's agenda. This doesn't seem at all controversial, Congressman.
Well, when you got somebody's paycheck that comes off this stuff, everybody talks a good game. That's why they want the 3,000-page spending bills. They don't want individual spending bills, which is something you've championed and I've championed. We do that in Tennessee, and guess what? The big boys can't slip something in. You got a dadgum dog catchers bill. You can't put a pay raise in for legislators. It's got to be about dog catchers when you pass it on the floor and it goes to the governor's office. And we don't have that in Washington, but we need it. And this is a perfect example why, because nobody wants to take on NPR. I was listening to NPR. I was pulling into my farm, and I don't know why nobody was holding a gun to my head. I'm not really sure why I was even listening to that nonsense. But they asked they were having this in-depth discussion, and they always pause a lot, and they go, oh yes, that's beautiful. And they asked this one cat asked this other one, he said, what is your definition of propaganda? And he had this thought-provoking pause, and he said, it would be when Lee Greenwood sings God Bless the USA. I about totaled my Dodge Dually right through the dadgum fence right then. I was like, you got to be kidding. I called Marjorie Taylor Greene. I said, let me tell you something I just heard. And she said, and then we said, well, let's bring it up to Doge. We should have had that dadgum bill on the floor that next day. And here it is, whatever, weeks, almost over. It is over a month later. And we still where is that dadgum bill? That's why I filed a bill, just to defund it, just say defund it. And, we'll see what happens. But
so it's not so the defunding of NPR and PBS, something that Republicans have been promising for so long, is not going to be happening in this big beautiful bill.
I doubt it in the big beautiful bill, no. But we need to bring it up. And I'm almost related. It's not. We should have, because I want to individually vote these things. I want to put people on the spot. I think America needs to know who we're electing. They've got the guts to pass these bills. Dadgummit, pass them. Start cutting. We cannot keep borrowing this money to give the war pimps at the Pentagon more money for stuff that we don't need. Mothballed projects. Battleships. We're building aircraft carriers. And everybody's saying, no, we don't need aircraft carriers. The reason we're building dadgum aircraft carriers? Do you know? Exactly. You make it's components. You don't just build it all out in one shipyard. With a bunch of longshoremen, it's built all over the country, and they point out which district each person, they build the missiles in your district, they build, the electronics in your, and they'll point them out in committee or in conference, and the press isn't there. That's crooked as a dog's leg, if you ask me. We need to cut that stuff out. And it's not my daddy's war. The Japanese aren't going to bomb Pearl Harbor, and then 6 months later, our industrial might's going to roll across the Pacific and wipe them off the dadgum face of the earth. And it's not going to happen.
It's going to be drones. You're right. It's going to be just like who can make as many drones, who can make the most drones.
Yeah, and you know what? They're going to put those drones up in the air. They're going to put. I've heard the numbers say they're going to put 300 up, and our $500 million or $500 billion aircraft is going to have to fly through that, and they won't. And they'll knock it down with a $3,000 drone. They'll fly the rest back to the mothership, and then they'll save them for another day. And Trump gets it, and the Congress gets it too. But the Congress is in bed with the lobbyists, with the war pimps, as I call them, and they hate it when I call them that. So I call them war pimps again.
So you're saying that the Republicans in Congress can't operate because their wives and their girlfriends are all working for too many special interests.
Yeah, and every time I say that, they come sit beside me, they send somebody on the floor, and they say, "Tim, man, I'm upset with you over this. You can't be saying this." And last time I said, "But it's the truth, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's the truth. You just can't say it." So
when you call out their girlfriends.
Yeah, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of hearing about it. And you know what? It's the truth. America knows it, and they need to quit. We need to start looking into this spending. This is ridiculous, some of this stuff. And Trump gets it, and but he's also a realist. He knows he can't deliver on the agenda if we don't have a little cushion. So there is some cushion in there. But I wish there wasn't, but we're a 3-person majority.
Something really quickly, and I know we're getting the signal. I know that you have a busy day on the Hill, but something that Dershowitz just talked about when it comes to Pam Bondi saying, "Hey, listen, we have all this Epstein evidence. Oh, it's a miracle. We just found 10,000 videos." What should happen here? This is something that you've discussed on the program. If you want to create faith and trust in the American people, you can't be covering up for predators. You can't be
total disclosure. Total disclosure. I passed some of the toughest laws in the country, and they were vaguely unconstitutional. I passed the death penalty on child molesters. Tennessee, they overruled it, but we got a good state. We got a good Supreme Court in the state, and they've changed the law now that is a death penalty option. But they need to be exposed. These dirt bags need to pull them out. Need to convict them. I'd go public executions. I'm not lying either. I'm not just full of bravado. I'd hang them up, tall, short piece of rope and a tall tree, and let them swing. Let God decide what to do with them, because I'm sick of them. These people, they prey upon these kids. They understand the system. They go to jail. They get their sentences flattened out. I mean, I proposed chemical castration long before it was. Everybody's like, "Oh man, Constitution." I said, "What about the Constitution of those poor kids they violated? They have a lifetime sentence, Benny." And it's a shame on us for covering for these dirt bags. We ought to be demanding this. Pam Bondi needs to get off her butt and do what she was elected to do, and quit running her dadgum mouth and saying stuff and then having to pull back. Just hold off on it. Show some maturity on this stuff. We're not. America is fed up, and that is one of the reasons they don't trust us, and that's for good reason. And maybe she goofed up. Maybe she doesn't know, but I'm tired of waiting. This has been going on too long. And I'm always afraid. I say this, and I'm guilty of this. America wants their pizzas in 30 minutes, and that's about our dadgum attention span. We're going to move on to another bright, shiny object down the road, and we're going to pass this up, and God's going to have his judgment on us. I do believe that. I believe when we get to heaven, the least amongst us, it's in the Bible. Jesus talked about it, and surely we can do something for these children and stop this and send a message to these dirtbags that we will send them straight to hell.
Just really quickly, Congressman, you talk about child sex trafficking. I mean, that happens because of an open border. 25 million, many hundreds of thousands of children because of Joe Biden. Now we learned that Joe Biden had terminal illness the entire time he was in office. Maybe this was what all of the vacations, 577 days on vacation. Perhaps he was getting cancer treatment. We have had doctors on the program all yesterday saying all of Joe Biden's activities, the weakness, the falling, the fog, the brain fog, that's because of cancer medication They were hiding this from the American people. What should happen to the people who hid this from us? Are Joe Biden's acts constitutional? What's your measure on Jill Biden?
Well, that'll be decided at the courts, but I'm sure we'll write somebody a strong letter and move on about it. I don't think anybody really brought to justice over this. You've got staffers. I would look. Tennessee has had a history of this. We had a governor several governors ago. He's since passed away, but he sold pardons. You can look it up. His name was Ray Blanton. It made national news, and I mean they wrote songs, "Pardon Me, Ray," and it was a cash for clemency deal. And that's exactly what I think you're going to find out. You're going to find staffers that were able to take forms, get them, and run them through some sort of bogus legal system, and then they auto pinned them. And there's probably people out on the street that shouldn't be, but somebody got rich off that. And I think those people I hate to say it, but you'll see something probably horrible happen to some of those people because it goes up the chain. This is a very dangerous town to play games in.
So you're saying that the Biden staffers took payouts and just ran the auto pen for certain pardons.
I have no direct proof of that, but I'm just talking about history. And if you got somebody making $100,000 a year and somebody offers you $250,000 in some safety deposit box. Yeah. I mean, look at all those, look at Clinton's clemency, Bill Clinton, the people he gave clemency to. Some of those people were just awful, awful people. And nobody raised a beat about them.
Yeah, I personally know people who paid millions to try and get Trump to pardon them. Very rich guys who are in prison for good reasons, and they go through these Republican lobbyists to try and get it done. It's a huge industry.
Yep,
it's really sick. Well, thank you, Congressman. We know you have a heart out, and we know this is a very busy day. The audience just loves you. Here's the dad gum. Do you have the emoji? I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Congressman, but
I've never seen it. Where is it? There it is.
Dad gum. Dad gum.
Dadgum, I got my first day of school haircut too here. So you need your.
Could I just get a dadgum for the chat? This is for you, chat.
Dadgum.
Everyone follow Tim Burchett. Look at this. Tim Burchett on his way to being an influencer. Man, he doesn't even have to dance for it. 170,000 followers. Just rip roaring. When you first were coming on, Congressman, you had like 1,000. So
wait a minute, no, Benny, you're selling me short, dude. Oh, that's my official account.
Oh, that's the other. Get the other one. Get the other one.
Get the real one. I got 294,000 at Tim Burchett.
Whoa, my apologies. Very rare.
There I am.
Very rare, producer L. We're just gonna round up 300,000. We're gonna give you a salt deduction here.
I'm getting that Benny bump.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get a 300,000. Flood in there to the great Congressman Tim Burchett, obviously the most popular member of Congress with this chat, and for good reason. Godspeed, Congressman.
Hey, Benny, don't forget I am not suicidal, so if sometime you find me with 14 bullet holes in the back of my head, I didn't do it.
President Trump, he went there, Congressman. He went there. You brought it up. He went there with that video this weekend.
Oh, I know. He's the man. He's the man. He's something else.
Thank you, Congressman. That's the topic for next time. Thank you.
Love you, Benny. Pray for our country. Thank you for being a good daddy.
I will. All right. Thank you, Congressman. Man, chat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wanted to get to the Clinton body count. Why not? He brought it up. There's only so much you can do. He has votes. Did you hear the buzzing? Whenever we have these members of Congress on the show, you'll hear this big buzz. And the buzzing means they got to go to vote. So if they miss their vote, then they get hit, when they're back home. Why didn't you vote? Why are you skipping votes? And so sometimes with interviews like that, they got to go, right? So it is what it is. When I'm home, I go to the sweet, red, warm comfort of my Bon Charge red light mask. Like a little sauna that I have in my home. My home is not big enough for a sauna. I have what would be considered a small home, I think, by American standards, but I like it. It's cozy. But some dudes have saunas. Joe Rogan has a sauna. Okay, cool. But you're probably like me, and you don't have the ability to do that, but there's a lot of huge health benefits to saunas. This is why some of the healthiest people on Earth and the longest living people on Earth in sort of the Norse countries, right? Scandinavian countries, but they use saunas all the time. Bond Charge is a fantastic product. It helps optimize for myself and my wife. It's something that we use constantly, and she used, almost every single day of her presidency, for pregnancy. Sometimes you're an hour or 2.5 and you just let her rip. She used it all the time. She has like a rash kind of thing, right? And this is just what happens. And man, this red light therapy is just incredible for that. Also for wrinkles, fine lines, acne, relaxation, razor burns. There's a ton of benefits. 10 to 20 minutes per day. And I've decided not to use it with my kiddos because the mask scares them. So when they go to sleep at 7 p.m. every evening, and then it's time for my red light therapy, ladies and gentlemen. It's sleek, it's lightweight, and has a 1-year warranty. The Bond Charge face mask keeps us looking fresh. All right, go to bondcharge.com/Benny and use coupon code Benny to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use code Benny to save 15%. These statements and products do not have evaluation from the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any single disease. Although, maybe we'll ask when we're with RFK later this week. I don't know. Donald Trump makes a massive announcement. He makes a huge announcement that there's going to be him and Pete Hegseth are going to be doing something very interesting at 3 p.m. Donald Trump, we don't know what it is. ALX, do we know anything about this? We don't know what it is. Okay, maybe a Golden Dome announcement? Not sure. This is just fresh. This is fresh off the wire. So big live announcement with the Secretary of Defense in the Oval Office at 3 p.m. We'll see what happens, but we might be live for that. Kind of cool. We'll be live at the White House on Thursday. We're going to have the show tomorrow. Show's new time is 10 a.m. every single morning or earlier, depending on the news cycle. But this is what we're going to endeavor to do. We thank you for locking in with us. President Trump, of course, saying this may also be what it is. I did want to touch on this. President Trump, confident Putin wants peace in Ukraine. He thinks he's had enough war. This is, of course, what we voted for. Maybe this is what he wants to do at 3 o'clock. Maybe they're going to announce a peace deal. The Vatican saying that they would like to negotiate peace. They want to host the peace negotiations, which is freaking awesome. Vatican, that's amazing. Well, President Trump saying Vladimir Putin wants peace. Again, this is what we voted for. I want ALX to play that. There it is. This is the clip I wanted. I can't. We got to do this one. We got to do this one. Before we go here, Trump shocks Kennedy Center board with a blunt message. I'll shove it up their ass. You want to know why everyone's cutting deals with this guy? Here it is. Trump shocks Kennedy Center. I'll shove it up their ass. What's the because based on the last Kennedy Center board, maybe they'd like that. Maybe that's definitely what the last Kennedy Center was into. But here, ladies and gentlemen, is Donald Trump's meaning behind all of it. He's talking about how they rigged the election against him. How they rigged the election with a vegetable, with somebody who's clearly having like a really tough time from a health perspective, Joe Biden, an illegitimate election. Donald Trump won 18 of 19 bellwether counties. And, of course, we all know what happened in 2020, okay? Happy to talk about that for the next 20 hours if you'd like, but we don't have the time right now. But Donald Trump saying, after they did that to me, I made a decision. I'm going to shove it up their ass. Here's President Trump at the White House last night, defiant.
And we got the Olympics, and then we got through Johnny, who's the boss. He's a friend of mine. We got the World Cup. I got them both. And I said, man, I won't be president. I got the Olympics and the World Cup, and I won't be president. And they're going to forget that I got them. Nobody's going to mention it because, a little bit that's the way life is. And then they rigged the election. And then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll run again, and I'll shove it up their ass. And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I then realized, I said, you know what? I got the Olympics. I got the World Cup, and I got the 250th. Look at the way this works out. So if they would have left us alone and wouldn't have cheated on the election and wouldn't have rigged it, I would have been retired right now. I would have been happily doing something else. And instead, they have me for 4 more years. Can you believe it? So it has
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something really cool here. We really want to appreciate you watching and experimenting with something with us. Which is freaking, that clip was awesome from Trump. So I have been told by our producers that we have comments on screen finally. Yes, there it is. Comments on screen. This is a beta test. This is your comments on screen right now. We might need to remove the watermark there. We can do that. We can remove the watermark. This is the first time we use a program called StreamYard for our streams. We're generally happy with StreamYard, but now for the first time ever, we have comments on screen. Ladies and gentlemen, right here, there are your comments. You can see them live. And we've heard people yelling at it. There it is, right there, testing. So give me a test. Give me a couple tests. Give me that Donald Trump hitting the dance move emoji. There we go. I'd like for them to be bigger. Can we make them bigger? It doesn't look like I can manipulate the comments itself. Yeah, let's see if we can get with the layout here. See if we can make it a little bigger. But ladies and gentlemen, there we go. This is the comments on screen, and then pop up an article. Let's see, Klein. Okay, so then the comments play there. Let's play a clip. There we go. Here's Monica McIver getting assaulting officers. Okay. 2019 Twitch technology has arrived. All right. Well, you know what? This is a multi-streaming platform. What you'll see is comments from Facebook and YouTube and X and I think Instagram. ALX, give me an explanation as to why the Rumble comments don't show up. Their API does not. And so what this is the comments for the entire show across all the platforms. For some reason, because it's RTMP, the Rumble comments do not appear. We have nothing but love for our Rumble audience, but for some reason the Rumble comments do not appear in our streaming platform, in our streaming capacity, in our streaming tech that we use called StreamYard. And we're not completely married to StreamYard. They've been pretty responsive. I think it's like an 8 out of 10 for our appreciation. Like, I think that's good, right, Klein? Good, yeah, okay. We've been asking for this for a long time. This just went live during the show. We finally have comments on screen. I can't put right now I don't see any way to I would like to take the comments, maybe put them, I'm not sure, maybe put them somewhere else on the screen, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Here's what it would look like. I'm going to put Killer Klein on screen. Here's what it would look like if Killer Klein and I are, this is like during an interview. So your comments will be on the face of the person I'm interviewing. Okay. So you want to get your comments right up on their face. Well, ALX, did you plan this with Dersh? Did you say, okay, let's get the Dershowitz interview done before we put comments on people's faces? Okay, all right, good, got it. Okay, don't worry, we read the comments, and our producers certainly do. There. Okay, so this is interesting. So now the comments, we may need to potentially shut the comments off. So this is again a brand new beta feature that's being tested right now. So this is me flipping it off, and this is me flipping it on. So maybe during the interviews, we take the comments off if they're like covering someone's face. Okay. Interesting. How would it look for show clips? Can you clip without the comment? That I'm not sure. Klein, you want to play a full show clip? Yeah. And let's see what the comments look like. We're just going to live test. Why not? This is a live test. We've been trying to do this for a long time. We've been begging for this feature for a long time, and it went live minutes ago. Okay, here's a show. Do Do Trump saying he'll shove it up their ass one more time.
And we got the Olympics, and then we got through Johnny, who's the boss. He's a friend of mine, and we got the World Cup. I got them both, and I said, man, I won't be president. I got the Olympics and the World Cup, and I won't be president. And they're going to forget that I got them. Nobody's going to mention it because, a little bit, that's the way life is. And then they rigged the election. And then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll run again, and I'll shove it up their ass. And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I then realized, I said, you know what? I got the Olympics, I got the World Cup, and I got the 250th. Look at the way this works out. So if they would have left us alone and wouldn't have cheated on the election and wouldn't have rigged it, I would have been retired right now. I would have been happily doing something else. And instead, they have me for 4 more years. Can you believe it? So it has
Comments on screen. Comments on screen. We love putting up your comments, but we have to do that individually, and it's so hard because there's so many comments. At least now, and the amazing Ashley on our team who does this is breathing a massive sigh of relief in Philadelphia right now. I love it. I freaking love it. This is great. We've been wanting this forever. This is a show for you, by you. This is a show where we ask questions about touchy subjects, right? Whether it's the Trump assassination, Joe Biden's health, whether it's about the true nature of what Diddy was doing. The show last Friday was bombshell stuff with Liz Crokin and or Dersh, right? And Epstein. Nobody ever asked that, right? So now we have the comments on screen. So we're gonna blend this into the show. Your comments will be on screen during the show. We're gonna work with StreamYard to maybe get them a little bit like a slightly bigger because the comments come in real fast. Yeah. But this show is for you. We read the comments. We will cover the topics and the stories that interest you here. We will book the guests, the big time guests. I mean, we can book anyone. We'll book those guests, come on the show, and then your comments can be part of the entire interview, part of the entire show. The show is for you, for us, Pretty awesome. That's neat. Okay. So we're going to work with StreamYard to see where these comments can be placed, see if we can get them a little bit bigger. Maybe top right. Maybe. And then, we do get a lot of comments. But now you have a larger guarantee that your comment will be on screen, as now we can show sort of the stream of comments rolling through. Freaking love it. So awesome. So awesome. Comments move so fast in real time, you can't read them. Here, I'm gonna pop one up. Okay, so then the comments appear with a comment. All right, so I'm using the feature that we used to have, which is putting up the comments here. Love all of you guys and gals. Anyway, have fun, says Angie. Angie saying yes, and she loves you. Very cool. Benny Johnson says Eva. Let's go, Benny says lumberjack. And right here, bless my heart, says comments move so fast in real time you can't read them, LOL. It's the best that we can do. The best that we can do. All right? The show is successful, and we want to make sure that your contributions to the show are appreciated. We love you, and we show that and demonstrate that every single program. So we'll have comments on screen from now on, and also a verse of the day forever, right? Another way that we show that we love you. Okay, here we go. Verse of the day for the first time ever with our comments on screen. Oh, that's nice. Look at it. Nice. It resizes. That's so cool. Okay, great. I'm so glad that we have this now. Great. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. For whatever one sows, that he will also reap. God will not be mocked. Whew. Yeah, a lot of examples of that. But there's some things that God just has control over. Life and death is one of them. Don't try and cheat God. Don't try and lie about your mortality. But also make sure that you know that you'll be judged for what you put out into the world. Make sure that is salt and light. That's why we're a salty army around here, okay? We're a salty pirate ship. Tomorrow's going to be hump day. I have a feeling Jerry's cooking. We're a salty lot. We want to make sure that we're putting out salt and light and asking the kind of questions, delivering the kind of information that makes the world a better place to live in, right? The kind of world that you'd want to raise your children in, because that's, well, frankly, the choice that we're all facing right now, right? What country are we going to leave to our kids? It's a major motivator for this show. If it's your motivator, I'd just like to request something. It's totally free from you. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the show on a podcast platform. Podcast. Main avenues for the podcast would be Spotify and Apple. There's also a link on our website here. Alex, let's get like a QR code that like pops up. Let's get like a QR code that we can do. We're trying to grow this audience. We're thrilled about how the show has grown on other platforms, and we've kind of just completely neglected actually what's called an RSS feed. And so it's something that we're trying to grow. If you have it in your heart to do something free for us, which is to subscribe to our Apple or Spotify, we're going to be doing some, they're rolling out some very interesting different features there, and we just want to be part of building out that ecosystem. So thank you for doing that. That's it. We thank you and we love you, and it's always fun to do the program, especially on days like this where we're so built for like a dynamic environment. There's so many other frauds that I'm not gonna name names. People who like pre-record their shows, they're not actually live. They're playing you something that's not in real time. They would never take Trump live, right? They don't like live with the news cycle, right? They don't live with the energy of the moment. We're going to be living with the energy of the moment, and we thank you for marching with us. On to victory. It's your boy Benny. We'll see you tomorrow.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.